I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. It's spooky season.
Are you going to do that all month? I love it. So
I was working on it. I'm like, I know that's terrible.
yeah, that was very Natasha when you said that, from Boris and Natasha.
Yeah,
what do you think, traveler?
You know me, I can't ever find my even ground. You sound the same every time, and even when I think I'm sounding normal, I don't sound normal. So whatever. Whatever. Okay. So it's exciting. So we are going into the spooky season. We have a lot of amazing episodes coming up, which is going to be so much fun.
Yep. Don't worry, we're not taking a break from our cryptids, monsters, and ghosts, because that's what we do. That's our life. But we're also going to do some fun things just for the season, for Halloween and all that. So
exactly,
hope you enjoy it. If you want to hear more of that, message us, let us know. If you want to hear less of that, let us know. We're still open to feedback. It's still first year of this podcast. Come on, we want feedback.
No, it's true. And we have, this is obviously spooky season, but we're going to go also into Nightmare November, where we're going to have a lot more cryptids and a lot of conversations with cryptid experts and stuff like that. And then of course, more of our fun stuff, because we like to find the wild and weird stuff and then give our opinion of it.
and we'll give you places to travel, even though it's you may not think as much with some of these things coming up, but I think there's still places you can go and visit and experience these things for yourselves. So
yes, no, very, very true. Very true. So with all that said, today we're discussing, because we're starting to go into spooky season, so we want you lined up with what movies, because we got asked this. This was a listener question. Is an episode based on a listener question, which was, what are our favorite horror movies? So we decided to make an episode about this because we got asked that question, and it's spooky season. So we're going to grab your pens and pencils, friends, or whatever, so you can go through what our list is. But I think we're going to have our list of our top 5, and then we're going to also do some honorable mentions, right, Mark?
Oh yeah, because there's way too many to mention. You can't narrow it down. Everybody's like, 31 Days of Halloween, those shows and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, if you're doing double features, you might be able to get through most of what I recommend as a must views for Halloween. So when we decided that we were just going to do top 5 each, I was like, oh, this is difficult, because there are some I love for different reasons. Some, I was like, can we just do top 5 werewolves, top 5 vampires, top 5 ghosts, top 5, other than nope. We had to do it this way. So, I
agree. So I thought maybe we could approach it. I thought we could each do our number 5 and then kind of go into some categories of ones that had different effects on us. Because I also treat a lot of these movies, how I came to my top 5 are movies that I've liked to watch over and over again.
Yes.
So there are horror movies that are amazing, and I'm going to cover some of those that I think are amazing, and you're going to cover some. And it's going to be interesting to see where our lists land, because we've talked about stuff that scared us, but it'll be very interesting to see. But
I don't necessarily think Halloween movies have to scare you. I think there are scarier movies than some of the ones I'm listing. But these are the ones I think that are perfect for the season, to get you everything you need.
Yeah, and listeners, send us your favorite Halloween movies, because there might be ones we haven't seen. It'll be a true test if that's true for Mark, but there might be ones that we haven't seen, and we'd love to share the ones and why you think they're great. So if you give us like a little sentence on why you think people should watch it, we'll share it on the socials so people can find these wonderful movies that maybe they haven't seen before.
Yep, and I try to lean. We've done an episode on Haunting of Hill House, which I'm just going to say right now, I had to pull that out of the list because we've already done an episode on it.
Well, so. I want to say this is, I think, because we're talking about movies, not TV shows. We're talking about movies. So an honorable mention to me is the Haunting of Hill House TV show, which is not aligning with the book, but damn, that was a good show and scary as crap.
And I took the 1963 Haunting, out of the running because we'd already done an episode on it. So,
yes. Okay.
That also
So,
sadly means Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is taken out of the running because we did an
Yeah.
episode on that. So
well, it's true, but that wouldn't have made my list anyway.
exactly, it's a fun
um,
movie, but it does not make the list. Yeah.
Yes. So, and
But
if you were
otherwise, I
gonna
would
watch,
say definitely watch The Haunting. It's perfect for this month.
yeah,
But
The
that's an
Haunting is
honorable
great.
mention.
And if you're gonna watch Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, get Jeff
Yeah.
Strand's book on it, because
Yeah.
it's a perfect accompaniment, because it also points out the stuff that didn't age well in
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how it works too. So it
Yeah.
almost works like it's like having a mystery science theater commentary if you're reading it along with the movie. It's hysterical. So
It's very true. Very true. Okay, so I'm gonna go first with my number
Okay,
5.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so go number
Okay.
5.
And I think you'll know why this is my number 5. I love watching this movie. Cabin in the Woods.
Hey, that was on my list. So it's a little higher on my list. So but that's good. That's good. So we can talk about it and I can squeeze something else in there instead. So yes.
Yeah, no. Cabin in the Woods is it was a Goss Wheaton movie, right?
Yeah, and yes, and oh gosh, because I know everybody is, Josh is not exactly persona, he's kind of persona non grata, but Drew Goddard is actually the one who kind of is the unsung hero of that movie, because he's the one who kind of came up with the idea for this whole movie.
And we got to be careful not to give away too much, because
spoilers, because we want
it.
you people to watch it if you haven't already. These are older movies, so sometimes some spoilers may slip out. But they saw a guy at a con wearing a shirt with a werewolf fighting a unicorn, and they decided to. And Drew Goddard said we should make a movie where that can happen.
And I have to say, it is first of all, it's got Chris Hemsworth in it. So
right before and that was just it. It was funny. He filmed this before Thor, and he hadn't popped yet, and so they kind of held it. This movie did not release; it escaped, and
it
just kind of disappeared into the background. So it was a couple years before this one saw the light of day, which is amazing to me because it's such an incredible movie,
and it's so well written. And I will say this: it is very cheesy in a way, but it's intentionally cheesy and follows the tropes, and it's just fun to watch. Even I've watched it, gosh, I don't even know how many times, because I think even all the actors and stuff like that did such a great job. Because I think, like comedy, horror, a lot of times I don't think gets enough acknowledgement for what it takes to create that moment, because it's not just the soundtrack, which has a lot to do with it, but it's a lot of the reactions the characters are having and drawing you into the emotional things that are going on. But that movie's a lot of fun, and it's not a typical horror movie. It starts off like a typical horror movie, but when you realize what's going on, there's a layer of humor to it too.
Actually, it starts completely off the wall, I think. It just and then it teases then you get into the horror movie, and then it goes insane. And I love that it was Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon they locked themselves in a hotel room for a weekend and wrote this, and they just kept handing each other bits that they'd written, and they were just laughing about it the whole time. So it really is. It's for me, as at the time it came out, we were running Hellview, and as a haunter, this hit me on a different level, because it was like, oh, this is the ultimate haunted house. They're running the ultimate haunted house, and so it hit me as the guys behind the scenes. I'm not spoiling too much, but because they're in the first scene of the movie. They're haunters running a haunted house, and and that's where we talked about these normal things happening as werewolves and zombies are all around us, and stuff. So it was that's where it hit me on another level. And I am a big fan of horror comedies, because if it's just straight horror, I love the slow burn, I love the slow build, but you can only get so scared. At some point, you're either turning off the movie or you just cannot function, right? And it's just, you're too scared, you're done. Horror comedies can throw in the laughs to give you that release and then rebuild the tension. It's like a roller coaster. If it's just constantly going up and up and up and up and up and up, and eventually at the end of the movie you get the drop, yeah, that's great. But if a roller coaster has a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns, that's much more exciting to me. And that's what I think a horror comedy is perfect at.
I agree. Okay, so what's your number 5?
Well, my number 5 was Cabin in the Woods, but
We can have it be a combined number 5. Let's have it be a combined.
I will say honestly, it fights for number 5 with my other choice, which is Evil Dead 2 with Bruce Campbell, my man. So yes, Evil Dead 1 is the scarier movie, and Army of Darkness is the funner movie to watch. And I watch Army of Darkness more than any of the others because it's just fun to tune on and listen and just enjoy. But 2 had that perfect balance of horror and comedy, and it's Sam Raimi at his height of creativity, and they also had no budget, so they were having to really make things good. And they basically retold the first story of the first movie in the first 5 minutes of that movie, and then it goes into a whole nother ball game. And of course, at the end of that movie, you realize this is like the origin story of a superhero. And
totally, if it was a superhero that you later didn't want to tell anybody was a superhero.
Yes. And and it's where I fell in love with Bruce Campbell. So
gotta love Bruce Campbell. I just scratched out because that was one of my honorable mentions. So this is going to be an interesting episode. Okay,
no, definitely watch it. You'll love it. It's got horror. It's got comedy. It's got Lovecraftian overtones. It's even Cabin in the Woods had those. I think we both agree Lovecraft is for what he was, he definitely had the right ideas to get you spooky and thinking bigger. World building was definitely a strong point. So
I agree. Okay, so I thought we should throw in an honorable mention now. What do you think?
Okay, that sounds good.
So my first honorable mention is going to be Jaws.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I think a lot of people have forgotten it is actually a horror movie. And when Jaws came out, it like some of the other sort of honorable mentions I'm sure we're both going to do, had a societal effect on being willing to swim in the ocean and stuff like that, because this was terrifying. I think if you surveyed especially people of that generation, it created the effect that they didn't want to go swimming in the ocetion. They didn't want to go swimming.
Oh, no, never again. It certainly had an effect on me.
And it was, it was one of those slow burn movies because you don't see kind of the creature until it's the roller coaster effect and the believability and Richard Dreyfuss and oh my God, just amazing cast. And I will say that movie was, I think if you haven't watched the original Jaws, you should watch it. And I know our friend James Michael Brody would hands down, because there was a great documentary.
The Shark is Still Working. Which is great. Which is on one of the DVD editions or Blu-ray editions as a special feature, and it's definitely worth watching. Because we talk about things like the whole Quint's famous speech on the boat is totally ad-libbed. It was not in the script, and and that's when they realized they were making a completely different movie than they thought they were. So
it was brilliantly executed at the time. It was terrifying, very terrifying movie. What about you? What's a good honorable mention for you?
My honorable mention is the WUSF Halloween special, which is a found footage style movie, Blair Witch style, of it's like watching a news crew at a haunted house, and all this weird stuff starts happening to the crew, to the paranormal investigators that are sent in, and all this, and it's done so 70s 80s cheese that you're watching it going, okay, this could have happened, and even when it came out, it was early days of DVD, but they came out on VHS because it looked like an old VHS tape that that they did special editions of. So if you don't know the story, the better, but definitely look it up. It's crazy. I don't want to spoil anything because the less you know about it, the better. Just pretend like you're watching a late night television special in the early 80s, and watching a news crew go into a haunted house, and you'll just have fun with it. So
I love that. I love that. Okay. What is your number 4, Mark?
Okay, so number 4 for me. This is one I'm going to get some flack because it should be higher on many people's lists. But number 4 for me is the one that I always watch to just really, really mess with my head and get into things, and that is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Anthony Perkins classic. Oh my God, it's the predecessor and the king. I still think the apex of the slasher films.
Well, it was the start of the slasher film.
Yeah, exactly. It invented the genre. So you if you love Jason, if you love Freddy, if you love Scream, you got to go back and watch Psycho at some point. I mean, I am a sucker for the classics. But this one, man, that first 20 minutes, you're hooked, and then it twists and you have no idea where it's going. And I know there's spoilers because it's 1960s. So it's a long time ago, but still watch it and let
Yeah,
you know
no,
better.
I agree. We
And
just did an episode on Boogeyman and Ed Gein and watch
it
Psycho because
inspired that movie. And
yes, it did inspire that movie.
and it broke all the rules. It does things like, there's a major character that dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and it's like that never happened before this. It's you don't cast somebody and spend money to cast them and then just kill them off. These are he was breaking all the rules, and boy does he. And and then he keeps you guessing right up until the end. And even then, even if you know the secret, if you haven't watched it, wow, you're just going to be blown away because it's Hitchcock and he's a master. And yes,
I agree. That didn't make my list, so people can be more angry at me. So number 4 for me, Mark, is The Silence of the Lambs.
See, same influence.
Yes, it is the same influence. And I have to say, if you have not watched The Silence of the Lambs, I know a lot of people make jokes about it, but one of the things I think that movie did is and another movie on my list is going to be kind of similar to this, is it took it from this fantastical kind of thing that even like Freddy and Mike Myers, and these were kind of a little bit fantastical creatures, right? And
they evolved that way. Yeah, they started pretty normal and then evolved that way.
No, it's true, but I mean, they have masks, they have burned faces, they have whatever. They're almost characters, right, in these stories that are monsters, right? Yeah. But Silence of the Lambs, I think one of the things it did, especially with the Buffalo Bill character and Anthony Hopkins, is these were very real people that could have been doing things because it was based on a lot of true serial killer activities, what happened, right? And it was very scary. To me, it's very scary because you just go, this could be literally a documentary series, the way it's done. This could be a documentary on these killers. And Jodie Foster, just all the actors in this movie, every single one of them.
And Buffalo Bob himself. It's so funny to see him in this and then watch later episodes of Monk where he's the detective. Just you're like, wow, what range that guy has, because it's completely different characters. So
agreed. But I love watching that movie. It's still, there are parts that are just, I think that they're I'm not a huge fan of gore movies, so I'm going to say that. So anybody who's a huge fan of gore movies like Cabin Fever and stuff, I'm not going to have a lot of those on my list because I don't.
Yeah, Evil Dead's about as far as I go with the gore. I like the splat stick, where it's just so over the top, it's cartoony.
Yeah, I just don't think that's not as scary to me as the psychological parts are what are more scary to me. So that will be my number 4. And I think if you haven't watched it, I absolutely say yes. Yep. So, what about another honorable mention, Mark?
All right, so another honorable mention for me because of that one, I'm going to say is one that was a little higher on my list, but I'm definitely throwing it in here. There's one called "You Might Be the Killer," and it was based on a Twitter exchange from Chuck Wendig and I think it was Michael Sullivan. and they were tweeting at each other one night about being one of them was working at a camp as a camp counselor, and suddenly all the teenagers were being killed by a mass killer, and he was wanting tips on how to survive. And then as they start going through it, they start realizing the one who's writing to him starts realizing, Chuck starts writing to him going, wait a minute, are you wearing a mask? Are you doing all are you, do you have a weapon? And and he's talking about, well, I've got this bladed thing, that it's a hip bone that's got teeth sewn into it. Maybe, is that a weapon? It's like, yeah, I think that's a weapon. So this movie version of it came out because it was a fun little thing. It went viral. So of course they decided to make a movie version of it. And the movie version has our stoner friend from Cabin in the Woods as the lead. And he's on the phone with his friend Chuck, who is played by Allison Hannigan from Buffy, Willow. And they're doing the same bits, but they're on the phone with each other. And it goes through every serial killer trope, every slasher trope. So it's a comedy, but the kills are great. And there really is some unexpected scares and some unexpected tension in it. So it's a guilty pleasure movie. It will not, give you nightmares. There is a little bit of gore, but not over the top. And it's just turn off your brain and enjoy what two brilliant minds can come up with,
I'll
for
have to
Halloween.
check that out. I haven't checked that out, but I will absolutely
It was on the drive. We didn't get to watch while we were there. That was one of the, since we lost a couple nights on the trip, we didn't get to watch that one, but that one was on the list.
We'll have to check that out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your number
What's your
3?
next runner up?
Oh, my runner. Oh yeah, sorry. So this is one I actually can't watch because of how it was filmed. I've watched it twice, but it actually kind of creates a little bit of a nausea feeling with me. So, but I want to give it an honorable mention because of this, which is Event Horizon.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah. So this has Sam O'Neill. Is that his name? Sam?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Jurassic
it
Park.
is it is about it's a sci-fi horror movie, and it is about a ship that has a particular engine on it that got lost, and people are going to the ship now to see what happened, like, because it shows back up suddenly, and so they are trying to find out what happened. And I don't want to give away more than that, but the way this was edited, I'm going to say edited because it's really the edits on this, fuck my life. Like that thing, like I literally had to stop the movie twice because of how it was filmed, and I'm sorry, how it was edited. And that's all I'm going to say. Watch this movie. I think it is great. Just be prepared because it's scary, but it scared me in a different way because of how this film was edited and how the story is told. So
no, it's again Lovecraftian. It's probably the closest, I think, to an actual Lovecraft style film ever. It really has that other world, beyond, type thing. So
what about another one like that for you? Because you did a campy fun one. I just talked about a kind of a scary one. You give a scary one, and I'll give a campy one. So what's your next one that's not rated?
Scary one that messes with me and that I'm like, oh my god, what have I just watched? And should I watch this again? There's a few of those that have done that to me in the past. Oh gosh, off the top of my head though, I would say the one that gives me the most chills, it's not deeping into any of my lists because it's just one of those, you don't just experience it, you kind of survive it. And that's the Babadook. You really do feel like this woman and her child, you are going through trauma. You are going through all these experiences. And when you come out of that on the other end, wow, you feel like a train wreck, and that's why it's such a powerful movie. The ending is unique, but that's it's a tough one. That one and The Descent are like right there for me on just harrowing.
It's funny you mentioned The Descent because I was talking with my other half, John, yesterday, and he was like, "Have you watched this movie?" And I was like, "I watched it a really long time ago." And he's like, "Yeah, I heard it was this." And I was like, my whole thing, I'm like, "Don't turn it on, don't turn it on." So he'll overhear this and he'll be like, "Okay, now we're watching The Descent." But that
It's our
is,
North Carolina monster. So
yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so for my cute, I don't want to say cute, but one that I think is like a feel good one that I really love, that I think a lot of people go, I don't know if that's a horror movie, but I absolutely consider it a horror movie, is Sleepy Hollow
Oh yeah,
with Johnny
fantastic.
Depp and Christina Ricci and
There goes that goes off my list. That was on my honorable mention list. So perfect.
yes, I love Sleepy Hollow. Is every year I love watching that movie. I think the characters in it just, oh my gosh, Christopher Walken, like that's all I'm gonna say about that. Just brilliant freaking movie.
Yeah, and based on real legends. Everybody's like, "Oh, Washington Irving made all that up." No, he heard these stories. There really was a German Hessian that was beheaded by a cannonball. There was, and that's the headless horseman story. There was a Strombones. It wasn't the exact guy, and there was an Ichabod Crane, but it wasn't the exact story. But he changed them all for his story. But we all know who the real characters are. It's amazing to me. And then Tim Burton then making that his tribute to Hammer horror.
Yeah.
So that's why Christopher Lee's got a cameo in it and all that. And you're guessing the whole time. It's wow.
It is very well done, and it's a very
That's an updated classic.
Yeah, told story that just pulls you in, and there's subtle scenes, and I ended up watching it. I love watching it, but it's one of those movies that I see something new every time I watch it. It's definitely up there. Okay.
It's also one of those movies where you could take like any frame from that and put it on your wall as a piece of art because it just looks that good. And when we got to talk to Casper Van Dien at St. Pete's Scares, that was what he talks about. That is, he wishes he could have done more on that because he hurt himself right off the bat on horse, but he made the shot and he was so proud of making that shot on the horse. And then Tim Burton asked him to do it again, and he did it exactly the same shot again. And Burton was just so impressed, because he really did hit the bullseye on the target both times.
That is,
and it was an old ancient musket, this real antique from the 1700s. He was terrified of it was going to blow up in his face because these things had a tendency to do that. And this one's old, but it's been so well maintained. It worked great. So
yeah, no, very true. And I think we're going to get to have Casper, but we got strike. It's got to be over. So that's another day. Okay. Number 3, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You're first this time.
Okay. 7.
Oh,
yes. With Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. I'm not going to say anybody else. Gwyneth Paltrow, I think. Yeah. I will say 7 again, like Silence of the Lambs, because I'm a huge true crime nut in a way. 7 was terrifying because it was so realistic. Like that killer, that's what I'm going to say. I mean, you just watch it and it's very gross at times. Like I feel like it grosses you out at times, especially when you're encountering the victims and stuff like that and what's occurring. But just the way it was written and the characters and what they go through, and just like I love that movie. I just think it was so brilliantly done. And this is what I'm going to say, because I'm not going to give it away. But the bad guy, who is a major actor, right? Their name doesn't even appear in the opening credits of the movie, and they did that intentionally. So when you do encounter the bad guy in this, you're surprised. And it also goes along with one of my things, because horror writer, I write stories that don't have happy endings. If you check out any of my work, you'll see that it doesn't end well. This movie doesn't fucking end well.
No, exactly.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it ends almost worse than it starts off.
Yeah.
It's already bad enough what's going on, but brilliant movie. So absolutely check it out. What about you, Mark? What's your number 3?
My number 3 is the one I feel embodies Halloween the most. And I mean, it embraces it to the point where you're just like, wow, this is incredible. And to me, that is Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh, wow.
Ray Bradbury story, and then Jonathan Pryce as Mr. Dark's Carnival, who comes to town, and Jason Robards is the old man who finally has a young boy, and they all are being drawn into this carnival of strangeness in this small town. And growing up in 70s in Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky, when the carnival came to town, that was a big deal. And I was, of course, drawn to the freak show aspects and stuff. So the dark side of the carnival. And then this is Mr. Dark's Carnival. And I don't want to spoil anything for you who've never seen it. It's a Disney, and it's not on Disney Plus. I'm very disappointed in that. But you can find it. And man, do you remember that one at all?
I don't, but I'm writing these ones down so that
okay.
now I can check it out, because I feel like you always give me. So there was a point in time that I went back when there were video stores. So I'm dating myself, and I'm not talking about Blockbuster. I'm talking about little
mom and pop
hometown
video stores before
videos.
Blockbuster took over. I worked at one. So
yeah, exactly. There was a little video store on just down the block from where I lived, and I used to go there, and I cleared out their entire horror shelf. Like there was a point in time I'd have to go in and see if any new horror movies were there, because there's a lot of them that I saw by that, but unfortunately that wasn't one of them. So I will have to check that out.
It was probably in the kids section, so you probably didn't see it. And it's terrifying. It is one of those, there are moments in that stuck with me, and maybe it's because I was younger. Now, I was working at the video store to get free rentals, and I was doing such a good job at it that they let me order movies. So I got to order tons of horror and sci-fi fantasy, and which is why I have this encyclopedic knowledge of these horror movies and stuff, because I was doing it for free rentals until I was like 17. And but that's also why I have this big gap from the 90s, because I was a dad and I didn't do any of that, but I was reliving my life through that one. Jonathan Pryce, man, he's perfect as a villain in that. So
I'll have to check it out. Well, before we go to break, because we got to do a break here, I want to talk about your favorite and my favorite kind of slasher. Because, we have Freddy Krueger. Nightmare on Elm Street was terrifying for me. You have Halloween, which is still one of the classics, right? You have the Friday the 13th, which in the original movie was not Jason the killer, but and then you have things like Child's Play, stuff like that, because Chucky's a slasher. But
the American Psycho series, So.
What is your favorite slasher movie?
Just basic slasher movie.
Basic slasher movie.
I kind of go. I think all the slasher movies are guilty pleasures. I think they're the goofier they are. Me, I like those. That's why I like that. You Might Be the Killer. I almost would say that's my favorite slasher. But my favorite is one that's called Behind the Mask: The Legend, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And it is about a world where there are these slashers, right? They're all over the place. And this is, again, it's done mockumentary style, where there's a documentary crew and they are following this guy who is about to become the next big slasher. And he's being mentored by this other, big time retired slasher. And it's this great story. It's got Robert Englund as a cameo in it. And he's playing like the Donald Sutherland type from Halloween. It is. I'm sad that they haven't done sequels, but I'm also glad they haven't done sequels, because I'm worried it might have ruined it. But that is quite possibly the best slasher movie ever made. If you are a slasher fan, do yourself a favor, find that one. You will love it.
I'm going to have to find that one. I don't think I've seen that one.
It was also on the flash drive that we were going to watch, and we lost the day.
I'm telling you, Mark, we're just going to have a movie day this week. You're just
all right. That's it. I'll come over. We'll do movies for a day. We'll do a movie marathon day. It'll be fun.
I love that. I will say, believe it or not, I think Scream is one of my favorites.
That's you cannot argue that, because they hit all the tropes and they have fun with it.
They did, but also the way they did it, like, I mean, talk about iconic, the phone call, the Drew Barrymore killing. If you want to talk about it, when they put that movie out,
in the first 10 minutes was a tribute to Psycho.
It is, and not only that, they killed at that time, not taking anything away from the actors, because Matthew Lillard may be one of my favorites on the planet, right? But I will say that I think that like the way they did that, the way they untold it, and then the end, they did a really good job of who the actual bad guys were and their motivation, right? Was, and I don't want to give it away, because if you haven't watched the original Scream, do yourself a favor, watch it. I mean, very much like many of these franchises, the movies get a little bit cheesier and cheesier as they go, but man,
I don't think Scream has had a missed beat yet. And to be fair, the goofy, scary movie franchise that was making fun of them, they're valid and they're also fun, and they are very spooky at times. And you will, they actually pull off some good scares and some good kills, as much over the top comedy as they're doing. So
Not So Scary Movie, isn't it? That's the name of it.
It's called Scary Movie.
Yeah, Scary Movie, and then Scream. Yeah. So we'll do that. Okay. So travelers, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with some more of our favorite movies.
Eerie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Greetings, mortals and others. I'm Dick Terhune, the voice from hell. I work with haunted attractions all over the US, Canada, and Europe to increase audiences and enhance their experience with highly effective commercials, narrations, animatronic character voices, whatever your dark heart desires. Let me help you do more, scare more, profit more. Find out more at Voice from Hell on Facebook and at voicefromhell.com.
We're back.
We're back.
Or should it be, we're back?
Yes.
Welcome back.
No, I want to talk about movies that gave you nightmares. Can we do that one? Because there is a movie that actually gave me very distinct nightmares as a kid, like very distinct nightmares as a kid. And I don't think a lot of people have heard about it, but so I'll say mine while you're thinking of yours, which is Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
Now, you watch it now, I'm gonna say I don't think the movie necessarily held up over time, special effects and stuff, but that movie scared the shit out of me. The snake thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had nightmares about that movie as a kid, like a ton of nightmares. And I'm not gonna dive into it, but it's definitely the story of a science experiment studying dreams. And it's called Dreamscape. It has a very young, very handsome Dennis Quaid, but yeah, that's on my list of movies that kind of scared the shit out of me. And the other one I'm going to say is Hellraiser.
Hellraiser messes with a lot of people. So
the way that was done, again, very kind of groundbreaking, but that gave me nightmares as a child. Hellraiser gave me nightmares. So
mine was, I have to cheat on this a little bit because the two things that gave me nightmares were television shows.
Okay.
One was Rod Serling's Night Gallery. There was an episode where a guy decides to poison a rival for his lady's affection that he's trying to get. And he does it by hiring some people that would put earwigs.
Wrath of Khan, having a Wrath of Khan flashback.
That's exactly. I slept with pillows on both sides of my head for years because I was terrified of that. And then every once in a while, somebody will bring it back up and I'll be like, And
Wrath of Khan did that to me. Wrath of Khan, I still like.
There's a great moment in So I Married an Axe Murderer, the Mike Myers movie, which is a great fun movie. There's a bit where she's like blowing into his ear and he goes, because he's at this point convinced she's a killer. And then he just quickly blurts out, Night Gallery, there was an episode with earwigs and all this. And I realized Mike Myers had the same nightmares I had from that stupid episode. And then the other one is It, the Tim Curry, that I was old. I'd seen a million horror movies and all this. And when that hit me that night, I had nightmares about clowns.
Yeah. So that was one of my, I was going to say, so now I have to pull it off and I'll replace it. That was going to be my number 2 because both of them, the new It that they've done, completely brilliant, much closer to the book. But that Tim Curry I couldn't go through near a storm drain for years.
Yep. No,
years.
I never had a problem with any, like I said, I'd seen a million other horror films and all that. That just those 2 nights of television, I was riveted. I could not turn it off. And even knowing Tim Curry, and it was just like, I knew it was Tim Curry under the makeup, but that night I had a nightmare about a clown. That there's one scene where he's coming down the stairs. It was in the second half where they're talking about something that happened after the first time they saw him. And I had that dream where he was there and coming down the stairs, and man, that terrified me.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. Let's do our number 2s. Now I'm going to have to replace my number 2, which I had a backup number 2.
Okay, good.
It was my backup, but you get to go first. What is your
I get to go
number
first
2?
this time. All right. So I would probably be Flayed Alive if I don't do a classic for my number 2.
Okay.
And so I have to do a classic, and it is my favorite ghost movie of all time. And that's saying something because I do love The Haunting. And I mentioned we did The Haunting and we kind of took it out of the running. It's kind of like Emeritus Award, The Haunting. But this one is called The Uninvited. It's from 1944.
Oh, wow.
And Ray Milland and his, I forget who plays his sister. They are coast of England and they fall in love with this house on the coast. It's a cliff face house. And they this was the first movie where the ghosts and the hauntings, I think, were not super, we always at the end it was some guy hiding in the walls. It was somebody was doing the Scooby-Doo thing. This was the first one where like it's freaking ghost right off the bat. They tell you that. And it's got everything you want in a ghost story. It's got a spooky story. It's got a spooky setting, a character that is literally haunted, that is played by this beautiful, I think, is Gail Russell, just in one of her early roles. Just, I know someone's going to comment and reach out at me because I've gotten the names wrong, but and then one of the supporting characters is freaking the guy who plays Alfred in the Batman TV series in the 60s, 20 years later. He's the town doctor, and he's the one, the outsider looking in, and just all this going on. And then the ghost effects are amazing for their time, and they still hold the freak up. And it's just, if you want a good ghost story for Halloween, this is the one to watch, and you will be enchanted through the whole thing. And it just enough chills and just enough spooky to just set you on edge. So,
wow. Well, sliding into my number 2 is also a ghost movie.
Hey,
so we're on the same wavelength. Sometimes it's terrifying.
It's scary.
It is. Love me some Matthew Lillard. It is 13
Ghosts. Yes, the remake. The original's great too. Don't give it a chance. Good.
What I love about 13 Ghosts is and I don't want to give away a lot because it's just brilliant the way this is written, and there is some cheese, but what I love is the amount of folklore created around this story, because it revolves around the Black Zodiac, right? And the way this is done, the way it's executed, it's got some really good scares, because the experiences the characters are having. And it's about Tony Shalhoub. is in it, and he plays a
Being a monk
widower.
again.
Yeah, his wife just died, and he has 2 kids, and they're on financial hardship because of everything, and his wife died in a very interesting fire, and his uncle, I believe it is, invites him to come live in this house. Him and his kids, gives him this house, this beautiful, very modern, very cool looking house.
Yeah.
But there is a giant but that goes along with this. So I don't want to give more away. If you have not seen this, because this was kind of a little bit of a sleeper movie, it didn't necessarily do well at the box office, but man, it is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite cosplays. I will say I played as the Withered Lover and gotten to meet Matthew Lillard. It was a highlight for me. And I'm a shout out to my friend Brandy. She listens to this show. She was dressed as the Bound Woman, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give away what those characters are, but we got to meet Matthew Lillard dressed as these characters. He absolutely loved it. He was one of the nicest people, but man, that movie scares the shit out of me sometimes too.
Yeah. I put it up there with the OG is from the 60s, is a great William Castle. It's fun. Again, not as spooky, but for the time it was, and definitely still holds up, and definitely, a classic to watch. I put it up there. 13 Ghosts is right up there for me, as one of just those fun ones that doesn't get enough love, and so I'm glad it's on your list. Yes,
it's on my list. I think we should do some other, before we give away our number ones.
Yes,
I think we should do some other ones, because there are some.
I've got a few honorable mentions.
I was going to say honorable mentions, but also mentions for ones that were very, changed the rules of horror movies, right? Because there are quite a few that changed the rules. Like the first one on my list is Exorcist. That fucked with so many people when that movie came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just was. My dad told me stories, so shout out Dad, I know you listen. He had friends that came and stayed in his house because they were so scared after that movie. And you mentioned it earlier when the first we didn't mention it, but I mentioned it in one of my. I was going to say Pet Sematary had that same effect too for my friends. When Pet Sematary, the first one, came out, they were staying in my house. I was like, that's not going to help you, because if Gage shows up, you're fucked. I'm not getting in the way of that shit. Nope.
Yeah. No.
But Exorcist was, I think, very revolutionary at the time it came out.
Yep. No, I go back to some of the anthology movies were always great for Halloween time, because you get more bang for your buck. I love it's like getting multiple movies at once. You go back to the old original Tales from the Crypt movie, where it had the little, one of the stories is the one with the little zombie, and stuff, and then they later went with the juju doll that comes to life, and you wouldn't think that'd be a scary thing, but when you watch that in that movie, man, that messed with you. And then later on you do the Creep Show movies, where you get all these great stories of Creep Show 1 and 2 are two of some of the best. And then, of course, the more recent ones, you got Trick or Treat, which I just introduced you to.
Yes, Trick or Treat. That was very fun. I felt like I'd seen it, but I hadn't seen it. And I have to say, the way Trick or Treat was written, how the stories were weaved together was fucking phenomenal. Brilliant.
And then they did a later one. The October Society did one called Tales from Halloween, or Tales of Halloween. And it's done really well. And the overarching thing with that is Adrienne Barbeau, from The Fog and all the great John Carpenter movies. She's actually reprising her role as the radio announcer from The Fog, and she's talking about Halloween night and all the things going on. And then, of course, all these little side stories go on, and it's really good too. A lot of people don't give it as much credit, because they call it if you ordered Trick or Treat from Wish, you get Tales from Halloween. I like Tales from Halloween. I think it's great. Give me more anthology movies, because those are fun to sit back, tune in, and just, and they also come up with some of the most amazing, innovative things. Honorable mention I also want to mention was, I introduced you to an episode of it, and that was Masters of Horror, which was a series on Showtime where they had the great directors, John Carpenter and and all these other guys, making their versions of classic horror stories. and we watched the one Cigarette Burns with a very young Daryl Dixon himself, Norman Reedus, and it's John Carpenter goodness. So
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people talk about is the people.
oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah, the people under the stairs. I think that's one where the actual like story is scarier than what you're seeing. Like when you realize what they are and who they are and like that's like a whole level, I think, right?
Yeah, we've already mentioned our favorite. We did episodes on our favorite werewolf and vampire movies and stuff like that, so we don't need to go over those there. Feel free to listen to those episodes if you're in the mood for werewolves and all that. Definitely, Dog Soldiers is still who I will slip in there. But no, one of the other things I like, I like to mention is the classics. Everybody's like, oh, Mark's Mr. Classics. I'll tell you the fun one to watch though is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, because you have Frankenstein's monster. It's not Boris at this point, but it's played by Glenn Strange. But then you also have Bela Lugosi as Dracula, first time as full-on Dracula since his original Dracula portrayal. You get Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman, as Larry Talbot, and you get even a cameo from the Invisible Man, and it's not even a cheap throwaway cameo saying, "Oh, the Invisible Man was there all the time, you didn't see him." No, there's actually a great cameo of Vincent Price there. And it really is, it's the Universal Monsters movie you want. And then of course later on they would do the Monster Squad many years later. Wolfman's got nards, but definitely tune those two on, because you'll just have fun with all the monsters and you'll feel right at home.
I agree. Another one that I thought was very revolutionary for the time was Saw.
Wow. Yeah, see, the torture porn was the thing I tried to avoid, but Saw is actually a very well done movie.
It is, because like there are some very gross scenes, but at least the first one I feel, and Jigsaw later becomes kind of one of the slasher guys, like, Child's Play and Chucky and stuff like that. But what the mental thing, because again, to me, a lot of it is the mental thing, because you really get into the heads of the characters that are trapped. And I don't want to say more if you haven't seen the original Saw, because I feel like the original one, because it was very low budget, it didn't have a huge budget. It has the amazing Carrie Elways in it, who I adore, Wesley from Princess Bride. But it definitely, to me, was one of those very kind of groundbreaking, where the horror comes from, where the scare comes from, because that was what would you do? Not like you're cheering for somebody to run up the stairs or down the stairs or look behind you. Like, this was definitely a mental sort of mind screw with what would you do in this situation, because they're made to create their own horror, right? So that's one. Another one that I that came out recently is ones like Bird Box and The Quiet Place.
Oh yeah, those were neat twists on new tropes, and stuff, and they were very good. I liked the Jordan Peele movies. I liked Nope, and
Nope, which is my namesake. Yes.
Nope. It's definitely. I was surprised that wasn't on your list. But there was his stuff is amazing for what it is. Again, what he's very much M. Night Shyamalan, where it's like, okay, there's a twist coming. Where's the twist? Where's the twist? But he does them so well, you don't care. Where M. Night, sometimes the twist is like, okay, that's all we got. But
his first ones, I have to say, Signs
still hold up. Signs, 6. I think Signs gets a rough, break. I still think it's actually very well done.
I think Signs was brilliant. A Sixth Sense. Unfortunately, I was one of those people that literally, I didn't see it because I've had my own ghost encounter. So I was a little like, I don't need to see. When it said I see dead people, I'm like, nope, thank you. I've seen dead people. I don't need to watch this. But I was watching it, and I was sitting there, and about 20 minutes in, I went, oh, Bruce Willis is dead.
Yes, because he's not touching anything. He's not doing anything.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, I
know we weren't supposed to do spoilers, but come on, guys.
What was interesting though, and I'm sorry, spoiler alert, is I was sitting next to a friend of mine who knows me a lot when it comes to movies, and I went, Bruce Willis is dead, and there's literally 20 minutes in, and he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because the only person he's talking to is that kid.
Yeah.
Like he's not, even though when like the scene where he's sitting there with the mom and stuff, and it looks like they're having a conversation. I was like, he's not talking to him. He hasn't changed his clothes.
No, yeah, that was one that got me, was when he starts to reach for the check and she grabs it and walks away.
Yeah.
The wife walks away. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because my friend then got up and was like, I can't fucking believe, and he stormed out. I was like,
yeah,
well, I warned you. But I thought that was a very well done movie.
Oh no, it's very, very good and a lot of fun.
And then another one that I like to mention from a ghost movie standpoint, because I think there are some of these kind of movies that don't get as much love for the horror genre, because there's like The Others with Nicole Kidman.
That's very good.
I won't do a spoiler alert on what that is about, but that's one that you kind of go through and go, what the fuck? Like you're not expecting the way it goes, I feel, right? Yeah. And then
so many twists in that one.
Yeah. And What Lies Beneath, which I've mentioned before.
Oh yeah,
Harrison Ford, Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, that is one that
Michelle Pfeiffer. So
there is some scary scenes in that. If you've had any ghost encounters, like you watch that and you're like, nope, I'm out. You know.
You talk about The Exorcist. I always like The Exorcist 3. I think that's probably one that really changed the game again on sequels. It redeemed the fact that we just pretend 2 doesn't exist. And it really changes the story of the first one without ruining it. And then, other ones, I love John Carpenter in general. So I think, his, was it, oh gosh, I'm blanking. Something of Madness, Mouth of Madness, is In the Mouth of Madness is his Lovecraft, and it's incredible. Prince of Darkness is incredible. That was the one I was thinking of. That even has an Alice Cooper cameo, which is a lot of fun. Bright Night. We mentioned that on our vampire episode. I still think is the best vampire movie ever, and it includes Dusk Till Dawn. I think Dusk Till Dawn was another groundbreaking movie because it just let's have fun with it. Again, let's change the story 10 minutes in and let's have fun, and
yeah. And you know what? I actually want to do a shout out for one movie that is a horror movie, and that is Deep Blue Sea.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because it's a horror movie where anytime I show this movie to my friends, because it was another one that was kind of like went into the shadows, right? But I always go, when they're having the party, because it starts off, they're having a party, and I go, here are your main characters. You need to tell me which ones you think survived this movie now. You're seeing all of them. They're all introduced. And 100% of the time, they do not pick the correct people that are going to survive that movie.
You never do on that one.
So I just think it was well done, but it's a cheesy movie.
As a side effect, the sharks got smarter.
I love sci-fi horror, so Alien and Aliens, of course, the first 2 definitely stick out as groundbreakers because of what they are and what they do. I still am a fan of the Tremors series. We've mentioned that a few times, and I forced you to watch the first episode of the series. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I will never get that time back. So,
but I love the Tremors movies for just because of what they are, and they're smart and they're kind of family friendly, which is great. And then I go back. We got to go back a little bit in time to the Catermass movies, which is something I don't think you've seen. They were Hammer Horror's attempt at Doctor Who.
Oh.
Nigel Keel, who we will discuss in the future, wrote a great television movie called The Stone Tape, which is what we refer to often as Recorded Ghosts. Comes from his television drama that he wrote. But he wrote a series called Catermass, who is this professor, basically Doctor Who. He solves paranormal crimes and stuff like that. And he gets invited to a place, and there's one called Catermass and the Pit. It's also called Catermass 2. And that one is where they are digging in the New York subway and they unearth a spaceship at this place called Hobbs End, which is all this paranormal activity just starts because they've unearthed this spaceship. And you realize it's the ghosts of aliens. And it's amazing. Wow. I don't want to spoil any more than that, but just it's a trip, and it still holds up.
You'll have to add it to our viewing thing because I haven't seen
that.
Yeah. Another one I want to Chud.
Oh, Chud. Chud's great.
Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller.
Gremlins, Ghoulies, Chud, all those were in that same time period, and
And
they
The
are
Thing with Kurt Russell.
the classic, the original 55, the
Yeah.
remake, all I think maybe even the new one a little bit. I like parts of it, with mostly Mary Elizabeth Winstead, but yeah, it's just it's good too. They all hold up. I mean, there's so many we could talk horror movies for hours and hours and hours, but we've got to break it down to our top of the top for Halloween. These are
So I'm gonna have you do your number one before I do my number one.
okay, yeah, because it may be, we may have to cross one off the list and throw something else on. So as has happened on this list. So my number one movie for Halloween, it's just one I sit and I watch and I just enjoy, and it's one that I kind of have to watch every Halloween, because I feel like if I don't, I've done a disservice, to something or someone. And so, man, I'm building this up because I really don't. If I say this, and then everybody's gonna be like, "Well, what about this one? Why didn't you say this one? Why didn't you say this one?" I'm gonna be like, because this is mine. This is
Okay.
I love. And yeah, it's not the scariest. Yeah, it's not a comedy horror, but it's just one I enjoy so much because it gets Halloween for me. It definitely feels Halloween, and it is just not anything you would really expect, and I just love it. And I'm just gonna come out and say it. Here we go. Are you
I
ready?
was like, the anticipation is building. I almost want to call Carrie and go in there and hit Mark, get him to say it.
It's War of the Worlds.
Oh, wow.
The 1950s George Powell classic. It fills so many gaps for me because it's alien horror. You've got some of the most impressive effects. They still hold up because they're miniature effects, and even the new Blu-ray, I saw some things in it that I hadn't seen, that they had done little blue lights coming down, so they were tripods, but it was just done that way. And the characters, you fall in love with them, and then of course we're gonna do an episode on Orson Welles' version, but it pays tribute to that, and it pays tribute to the H.G. Wells, and it's its own thing, and you cannot beat it. It's and I grew up, that was my movie, man. That was my Halloween movie. They would air it every Halloween, and I was hooked. I couldn't stop. Still don't. I will love that till my dying day.
No,
So.
that makes sense. I have to say, I'm not surprised by that at all. I will not at all. That is not my number one horror movie. I will say two movies that I can't help but watch, and I think you will agree that are Halloween movies that I think are absolute musts are The Addams Family.
Yeah.
And the oh my gosh, I just lost it. Winifred, the Sanderson sisters. Oh my God, Hocus Pocus.
I'm not as big of a fan of that as everybody else. Just like I'm not a big fan of Beetlejuice. I know I'm sacrilegious, but I think they're fun movies. I don't think they're great.
No, I love Beetlejuice too. So these are some of my fun movies I like to watch. But my favorite horror movie, I've mentioned this before. You just mentioned it, so I skimmed over it. My favorite horror movie, which I will watch till my dying day. I love the director's cut. These are my favorite creatures. I collect the miniatures of it. Is Aliens, the second one.
Yes.
I will tell you, I think the premise, like the first Aliens was very scary, but the premise of this movie and the fact that, she was in sleep, they wake her up, right? I'm not giving anything away because it's the first 5 minutes. They find it's been, I think, 50 years or 75 years.
75 years, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And she didn't have a happy ending in the first one, even though
she did not have a happy ending in the first one, but the Colonial Marines, Bill Paxton, by far one of the funniest lines ever in, this girl survived for 2 months or 3 months with no weapons and no training, and he goes, well, somebody should put her in charge.
I mean, you can't help but love that movie.
It's just the suspense, gore, survival. It's all just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant.
And
it is my favorite horror movie and will be my favorite horror movie ever. Like
it's amazing to me. I love it. And it's inspired so many other movies, and stuff like that, it's, I'll say, with that, that's a hard one to top. I mean, people are going to be like, why didn't you mention The Shining? Why didn't you mention this? Why didn't you mention that? And it's like, because they're good movies, but that's just not Halloween feeling for us. This is a personal opinion, gang. So,
hey, send us your favorites. Send us the
Yeah.
ones you think we should have mentioned. We would love to bring them up. If there's something you think we missed, or you want to know whether or not we watched one of these movies, send it to us. We are both horror fans. Even though I nope out of a lot of situations, I can have a remote because I can stop the damn thing from going all the time. The Ring was another one we didn't really mention.
Oh yeah, no, it's I barely talked about, I love some Italian giallo stuff. I'm like everybody else. I will tune on Joe Bob Briggs on Shudder and listen to him rant about a horror movie for 2 hours, because that's what I do. And my kids both watch it because they go, "Hey, it's Dad on TV," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing I do." And that's just it. We these are just personal opinions. We love them. There are others. Trust me, if you like the movie, I didn't mention Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead or Shaun of the Dead, because we're going to do a zombie episode at some point. So I tried to avoid things like that I knew would be, later on. So
we'll definitely, trust me, we're going to cover more. So if you have not watched some of these movies we mentioned, please watch them. Please let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what your top movies are. We would love to hear it. You can go on our website and send us a message. You can email Mark at eerietravels.com, MARK. And let us know, because we'd love to hear your thoughts, travelers. We're in this together. So we hope you grab your caramel apples and your wonderful caramel popcorn, because why is everything caramely? Grab some of your favorite Halloween candy, some warm apple cider, or some absolutely delightful pumpkin spice anything, and enjoy some horror movies, and let us know how your Halloween goes.
And like I will sometimes say often, that I'm not saying there are ghosts, monsters, and other things that go bump in the night, but there are always more trick-or-treaters than there are kids in the neighborhood. So with that, gang, we will see you on the other side.